Alright, so here is the power chute. Now this is connected directly to the UPS. This is an APC. Let's see, what model is that? It is in here somewhere. This is the 550G, which I think is supposed to be 550 amp hours. I don't know what that is in actual amperage. You think it's 120 divided by 550, so that would be about 3 amps maybe. It's actually isn't. It's not as impressive as you like to think it is. So when I look through the different performances, so the current status, it doesn't actually tell me. Let me see. Maybe it does. It doesn't tell me how much power I'm using right now. But you'd like to think it would, but it doesn't. It has a little bit of a, maybe the newer softwares work better. Now, if I look on my power meter, my what's up meter, it says I'm using 125 watts right now. That was with the router slash DSL modem, the 2 monitors, the small one and the bigger one. I have a 7-watt LED light desk lamp, and my printer is in standby. And that's what I have running on this UPS right now. And all that, it is 125 watts. Now, according to this program, it says I have 450 minutes to go on this if the UPS goes into battery mode. Now, 450 minutes, that's like, well, let's just look here. Because my brain isn't functioning at 1 o'clock in the morning. Not that it functions any better at any other time of the day. So, 450 minutes divided by, you guys have already figured it out, but 75. So that's 75 hours that it should be able to run for. Now, I don't actually think that that's an accurate calculation. Kind of why I don't really like this setup. Now, I know it went off in like an hour or so. It was dead, and it was dead. Now, I have a 50 amp hour battery. So, that's at 50 hour, at 1 hour it'll pull 50 amps, right? So it should run for 50 minutes pulling 1 amp out. If I'm playing it right. Trying to remember exactly on how it works. But I think I only have about an hour running existing power. I'm not really sure. I'm going to have to look into how this gets calculated. I'm sure someone out there would tell me exactly how it works. What I want to do is add a second battery. My plan is right now is to add a second 50 amp hour battery. Will give me 100 amp hours, and replace the UPS assembly with a better inverter. I have a 12 volt 700 watt inverter. Actually, my first inverter I ever bought was I should get it, read right off of what it is. I think of the name of it, but it's a modified sine wave inverter. I was really very proud of myself when I bought that inverter. You do it in electronics in Needham, Mass, which is the coolest place for anybody who's into electronics. They got all component stuff. They got all kinds of stuff in it. It's sad that it's 3 hours away because there's nothing out here that's like it or even close to it. But I was pretty proud of myself when I bought that inverter, 12 volt, and I ran different things on it over the years. So it's 700 watts, has a surge on it at 1500. So I could use that one in the case, and I could use a I could use an iota battery charger, a small 15 amp one, and I think I get some better performance out of it than running it through this UPS. I think that the UPS I have, it's the cheaper version. You pay $40 for it, and I think it has a really bad inverter. It's really noisy, and it has a very poor performance on it. I think a guy named Chris, YouTube video, he had a oscilloscope, and he was playing around with different things, and he tried UPSs, and they had really poor power output. Really sloppy. You couldn't even call it modified sine wave. It's a really sloppy output. And you can get, true sine wave UPSs, but they're far more expensive. And I'm thinking that I could use it just to make this one work a little better, just for my computer backup, and it wouldn't cost me a lot. Another battery is about $100, $120 from Amazon, and then another $120 or so for the charger. It would mean that it would run off the inverter all the time, and when I'd lose grid power, it would just switch to battery. The charger would go offline, and the battery would continue to run the inverter. I could put in a transfer switch, and it would take off, but I don't know if I want to do it that way. I'm kicking it around. I could also get a let's see, actually I can bring it up here. So I could go to Store, which is a really good off-grid supply store. There's a lot of YouTubers that I subscribe to uses this store. This is local to me. It's 2 hours away, if that's considered local. Inverter / charger. And so I could go with one of these inverter charger, and I can actually get it for, if I get it directly from Xantrex, I can get it for $400 with free shipping. And this would work fine. This is a modified sine wave, but that's all I need to run. You know, all the devices have well, I'm not sure about the printer and how clean the power is for the printer, but that would be an option. It would be more money if I wanted to go with a pure sine wave. It's a good brand for what I want to use it for. Now I could get a pure sine wave inverter, but I don't have any motors running on the system. This particular setup is not using any motor, so the pure sine wave isn't necessarily needed. It's in here somewhere. Most times it's a little annoying about how it's laid out. It's weird. It should be right here. Well, for not too much money, it would I think it's $100 more for a pure sine wave inverter. But so at any rate, I could go with a one of these, the Xantrex inverter, for about $400. And that would automatically switch off. It would stay on grid power until I needed to. And then it would be a cleaner way of utilizing the power. So I'm kind of interested in some input out there from some of my favorite YouTubers on any suggestions. Now this is just for the command center, essentially the main computer. It's really just to keep the router alive, because usually when we lose power, it's just power and it's not phone line. And do I really need it? I don't know if I really need it. I mean, I survived for the 28 hours without the router. There's some advantage to have access to the internet. I guess if I had a smartphone, it would be kind of redundant. But you have access to the news and the weather, and if, to find out what's going on in the area. It's getting harder and harder. I mean, that was something that I noticed because I had my radio, and there really was very little information about what was going on in the area from the radio. The local quote-unquote station that you turned to it really didn't talk at all about, what's going on as far as we're concerned about. And so everybody really pushes you towards the internet to report issues, and you could look at the what grids are down and online. So 17 minutes. I don't want to be talking this long. But I just tend to babble. What can I say? I just go on and babble. I'm looking for input. So these are my concerns. I need to be able to extend this particular command area longer. I would like to be able to have my area where I sleep and run my medical devices longer in a power failure. So the 28 hours, 2 days, I know I have to get a usable generator or fix the generator I have. One idea is that you go to either a propane conversion to the generator or buy a generator that has the 2 fuels on it so that I can run a propane tanks on it. And so those are my 3 areas. I can get replacement batteries, Trojan T105REs for about $140 if I want to replace the cells that are bad in the bank. And maybe that's sufficient to bring the battery bank up to snuff. I'd have to see which batteries, how many of them are bad, but that would be a requirement. So adding more batteries to the main battery bank and or generator is an expensive proposition. Those are 2 weaklings. And improving my battery backup setup for this corner is something else to do. And those are kind of primarily the things. I really should have a way of running the refrigerator offline. And I do kind of have that. So I guess that's not really a problem. I would just have to switch over onto the other inverter going to the transformer. So, well, if the generator is running, I can run that generator. Now, one of the things with the generator is that the power isn't very clean. Unless you get a inverter generator, you don't have really clean power. If you get a whole house generator, the power is clean. If you get one of these trashy, cheap portable generators that people use on construction sites to run power tools, they're not very clean power because they're designed to run power tools and not computers and sensitive appliances and such. A lot of things to consider. That's kind of where the option is better, is to just charge up the battery bank with the generator. Pump some water so you can flush the toilets and stuff like that, and then, you know, once you get your batteries back up to charge, you turn the generator off. So much to consider, so many places I have holes. If it's sunny out and I had solar panels, the solar panels would charge the battery bank. But in the wintertime, we'd have very little sun in this area, and that doesn't make sense either. And you got to realize too is I don't have a boatload of cash to put towards this kind of thing. So I have to kind of figure out what's the cheapest way to make things more survivable.